All right, so now it's time for a slip potting demo. Now I've got this little juniper here, so this tree is just going to be a lot easier for me to work with rather than doing a big tree and trying to fit it all in frame and, you know, working with a big heavy root mass and all that kind of stuff. So this lesson, you'll be able to apply it to basically all size trees. It's the same thing, but we're just going to use this little juniper here from out in our growing section. So this guy will be a future bonsai later on here at Bonsai-En. He's coming along nicely. It's been grown from something that was probably only about this big here, so he's been coming up in different size pots for probably a year or two now. So we're now ready to go up into our next size pot here. So we've got about 140 mil pot here, and we're going up to a 200 mil pot. So you can get around 180 mil pots, but this one we're just going to go up to the 200 mil because it's not that much bigger. So you can see, you know, we've got a little bit of extra room here on the bottom to grow. It's not overly big, okay? You can see the bottoms of them there. So it's not a massive increase in size. It's not overdoing it. You know, like we spoke about earlier, you don't want to just take something that's this small and put it into a, you know, big, massive container and let it grow, because you're just going to have a lot of useless soil space inside your pot there. So we've got our little tree, we got our pot that we're going to go up into. We do also have our soil mix here as well. So this is just an organic mix with perlite in it. This is great for junipers for the drainage. It's also great for other conifers, pines, broadleaf evergreen trees. If this was a deciduous tree or an Australian native or something like that, then I'd probably take the perlite out and just leave the organic in there. That way we hold a lot more moisture. Those trees tend to like that a bit more than having the free drainage like the conifers and the evergreens do. But that's our soil mix. And then also here I've got a chopstick and a root rake. So we're just going to jump straight into it here. So first of all, we're just going to squeeze the pot here just to loosen the roots up around the side. And then we're going to come in and actually hold the trunk here, okay? You don't want to hold the tree up in here or anything. You want to hold it right at the base at the trunk. And you can try and pull the pot away from the soil, but if it won't come away, you can actually, on the edge of your pot here, you can just give it a bump, and then that should loosen it up. Then we can take our tree out. Now, while we've got our tree out, we just want to do an inspection, you know, around the root system. So I'm just going to take this soil away for a minute. And that's the reason I've got the whiteboard here, so we can actually put this in front of the whiteboard here, so that way we can see it a little bit better. So we can see that we've got to the point here, like we spoke about earlier on in the earlier lesson. You can see how we've got the roots that have come to the outside here. They've come all the way to the bottom, but we're not completely root bound here, okay? We haven't got the roots running round and round and round the pot, okay? We've still got loose soil here on the sides. We've got nice healthy roots here, okay? So what I'm just looking for here is if there's any kind of pests, okay? You know, we're looking for like root aphids, curl grub. We're looking for ants, all those kind of things. And everything seems to be nice here. We've had nice root growth over the last season. I'm quite happy with the amount of root growth that we've had. So at this point, I'm more than happy to put this guy up into our next size pot just here. But before we do that, just move that over there. Something else that we do want to do is just up the top here of the tree, okay? We want to remove a little bit of this soil back and see what we can expose of the Nebari, okay? So in here, we want to just scrape some of the soil back, see what we can expose in the Nebari, see if there's any roots that we can possibly lay out, see if there's more of a base to this tree. And the thing is, as we're slip potting, you'll notice that when you do slip pot a tree, you'll have a lot of roots in the body, okay, and you'll have a lot of roots down the bottom, but up the top you won't have as many roots. There will be roots there, but you won't have as many. And the reason is there's a lot more light up there, and remember, like we spoke about earlier, roots like to grow in darker locations, so there's a lot of light up there. There's also a lot more oxygen up the top, so even though roots do like oxygen to grow, there's got to be a balance between water and oxygen. And when we start moving towards the top layer of our potting soil, we start to get an imbalance of water and oxygen. We start getting more oxygen, okay? So that's not as good for roots. It can dry them out, kill them off, okay? So what we can do is actually remove some of that top soil, okay? Work down a little bit, see where we find a good mass of roots, stop there, and then we can see if there's any potential there to lay some roots out for Nebari. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring the camera in closer now so you can see a bit better as we do that work, and then we'll see what we find. We may find something, we may find nothing. That's just, you know, how this game goes. But we'll have a closer look and see what we come up with. Alright, so we're in nice and close now. So we're just going to start working back some of this soil on the top here and seeing what we do have up under here. As I said, we may find something, we may find nothing, it just depends. So I'm going to start working this away. Now you can either use your chopstick for this, like I'm doing, or you can use your root rake. But on a tree like this, the root rake might be a bit aggressive. So I'm just using the chopstick in this case. See, and already I've got this root just here. And even though it's tiny, we can set that up later because it's coming directly from the base, okay? It's coming from the base of the tree. We can set that out nicely, make sure the root tips down in the soil and grow that on as part of the Nebari. So this is why usually when I'm slip potting, if I'm doing it in season, okay, so we're coming into the warmer weather in spring here in Australia, so this is a good time to be doing this. I can disturb the root system a little bit without a problem. Now, if this was some other time during the year, like late spring, early summer, autumn, winter, something like that, I would have just taken this straight out and put it straight in the other pot. No disturbing the roots at all. So we're just going to continue to work this soil out here. Now this tree is quite dense at the moment, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But it'll be good to get some extra distance between the first branching and the soil surface. Now I know for a second it's going to be a bit hard for you guys to see. Just bear with me. I've always said that doing bonsai work for camera is a lot harder than just doing bonsai work. It can get very difficult. And as you can see, just working from the centre out, trying to see what we can find. And look, we've found a nice root just there. See this one starting to appear just here? I've actually scratched a little bit of the bark off it, but that's coming straight from the base. So that might be a good find just there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to keep doing this work, okay? And then we'll come back and have a closer look. That way I don't keep obstructing the view of the camera. I can just get the work done. But you've seen what I've basically been doing, just working from the center out, removing some of that topsoil until we get down to some roots that might be usable for Nebari. So I'll do that, we'll come back and then we'll discuss what we've got. All right, so I've gone through and I've removed a lot of the soil from the top, which you can see over here, okay? I mean, there's not a ton there, but it's just what was on top. And we've started to uncover parts of our root, okay, or our Nebari, so the surface roots. So you can see here, we've got this root that actually comes from the tree, okay? I know it's kind of hard to see, but see how that comes from the base of the tree, and then as it comes down, it's split off into two, one on this side and one on this side. Now, both of them, the one on this side went round to the back of the tree, and then this one on this side went round to the back of the tree as well. Now, obviously, in our Nebari, we'd like roots that come out towards, you know, it's not straight at the viewer, but, you know, coming out towards the viewer, basically. We'd rather that than have the roots running around the tree. They don't look as good. Roots that are splayed out evenly around the tree, especially on formal upright, informal upright, those kinds of things, they just look a lot nicer. So now, what I've done is, with this one here, for example, on this side, you'll notice I've gone through and I've actually followed the root down through the root system the best I could, and has got as much of that root out as I could. So basically, very carefully, if I lift this up, let me just separate that from there, you can see here on my fingers, all this here is actually that root, okay? So this is all the fine root tips here. Now, when we're doing this work, we want to try and dig as far as we can and try and get as much of this as possible, because the more of this that we can have in the root system moving forward, the thicker that root will grow and the quicker it'll grow, okay, and give us that nice Nebari. So we really want to try and dig through the root system. So say if we had another one coming out here in the crutch, okay, we'd want to dig down through the front of the root system here and try and get as much of this root out as possible without damaging it. We want to keep as much of that as possible, okay? And the other thing that you want to do throughout this process is, in the studio here at Bonsai-En, it's a very controlled environment, but if you were doing this kind of work outside, all these root tips here, what you want to do is get like a spray bottle, okay? And just keep the root tips moist, okay? You can spray around the tree and just make sure you keep them all moist, because if these root tips dry out in the wind, then you could actually kill the whole entire root, okay? And if you do that over the whole entire tree, you could be spelling trouble for yourself. Now, the one on this side that went back, this was quite a thick root, and it went around the tree and it went down in this hole here that you can see that I'm putting my chopstick down into. That's the hole that I actually dug down into to follow the root. Now, it went right down into the middle of the tree, so I couldn't get the whole root out. So what I did was dug until I could find enough small feeder roots on it, okay? So let me just clean this off a little bit and see if I can get my fingers behind there. See all those little tiny feeder roots on there? Okay? That'll keep the root alive. I want to keep some of them on there. But now, this is going to allow me to take the root that was moving around this way to actually move it to around the front, okay, and keep the Nebari going, and I can put those fine feeder roots back under the soil like that. I can move this one forward, okay, make something like that, put those back under there, and then I've got my roots moving towards the front rather than moving around the back of the tree. Now, I've done this a few times around the tree, okay. We've got this guy here, okay, and you can see once again, I've managed to get basically all of the root. That's it there in my hand, okay? See all the root tips there? So I can lay this guy out to where I want him, basically like I'm designing branches, but I could put him over here, or I can put him over here, wherever I want to put this guy, and then I can put those root tips back under the soil surface like that, and then that Nebari will thicken over time. It's going to be hard to show you the ones in the back of the tree, I think. Yeah, it's going to be difficult to show you those ones, but, you know, I uncovered a big root just here, okay? You can see where I've scratched it a little bit, and more roots back here, you know, so there's this guy here that's coming from the trunk, so we can grow that off as Nebari. But that's basically how we follow the roots while we're slip potting, okay? And I've got a good selection of roots around the tree now. So I'm going to move this over this way a little bit. So you can see I've got this guy here coming off the trunk, okay? We got the root tips there. Okay, it's not quite as developed as the other roots, but that's what will keep the root alive if we put that under the soil surface, and then what's showing above the surface will actually thicken. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go around and I'm going to lay this root system out, and then we'll come back and have a look at what I've laid out and what I've done, and then we'll put it into the pot. Okay, so as you can see, I've gone through and I've taken this root here from wrapping around to the back here and brought it out to the front, put a little bit of movement in it, and you can see I've pinned it down with some wire. Now I'll show you what that looks like. So let me cut a bit of wire off here. So you got regular bit of bonsai wire, and you basically just bend it over into a pin, okay, like so, and then you can actually use that to pin down your roots, okay? Run them through the middle and then push that down into the soil and pin them down. So as you can see, I've pinned these ones down and put some movement. This one that was running right around the back of the tree here, I brought this to the front, okay, and all the roots are down here. Then I want to show you one in here, if I can just move this foliage out of the way and get a good shot of it. You can see that's a nice big root that I found in there, okay, and you can see the movement that I've put in it. Now a lot of these other ones, like this guy here, is not really big enough to be doing any of this kind of work with. So what we're going to do with these ones is we're actually just going to lay them in the spot where we might like them, and then bury the root tips again, okay, and then let that thicken, and then maybe a year or two from now when we do another slip potting, we'll probably slip pot this again next year because we'll have enough root growth that we do it, but we may not do this work next year. We might do it the year after. So once this thickens a bit more, then we can come in and we can either wire it or put some pins on it and do that same work. Same with a couple of these guys up in here. We just need to let them thicken for now. As you can see, these ones are a lot thicker, so we were able to do this work. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the camera back out, and then we're going to put this guy in its new pot. Okay, so we're back out. We're ready to put the tree into the new pot. Okay, we're going up a size. I do hope that you guys could see what I was doing in there. I do apologise because working on roots that are this fine is very hard to capture on camera, and it's even harder for me to do the work in a way where I'm trying to show you guys what's going on, but I'm also trying to see what I'm doing and handle such fine roots that could break very, very easily. Like, this is something that you have to take a lot of caution with. But I'm hoping that you guys did see what was going on there. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give this another quick spray. As I said, just to keep them root tips nice and moist. And I do suggest getting yourself a fine spray mist bottle. These are the ones that we sell at Bonsai-En. You can see that they're good for bonsai because they have the long extension on them, which obviously allows you to get in. You don't have to get the whole nozzle right up there, and it gives you a much finer spray. But we've got our tree here now, we've got our pot, so I'm just going to grab some of the soil over here. Alright, this scoop's probably a little bit too large for this job, but we're just going to start filling our pot up here, okay, and we want to fill it up enough so You can keep, test fitting your tree, but you want the tree to kind of sit with the Nebari at the top like that. So as you can see, if I sit the tree in there now, it's sitting down a little too deep, so probably get another scoop in there. All right, let's just see where we're sitting there now. All right, that's looking about good. Okay, so once we've got our tree in there, and I'll just show you, not that it's anything, but that's the soil in the pot, okay? Nothing special about that, it's just filling it up, filling it up to the level where you think that the tree might sit, okay? So now that we've got that in there like that, just going to give it a quick rotation in there just to nestle the bottom roots into that new soil, okay? We don't really want air pockets in there. And I should mention too, slip potting is another good time too, where if you needed to do an angle change, this is a good time to do it. So if we wanted to maybe put this tree like that, now's a good time to do that. And then we could have the tree, standing up a bit more like that. But for us, we know where we're going with the design of this tree, so we're gonna put it back the way we had it, nestle that in there, and now it's just a matter of getting your scoop and backfilling the soil in around the edges. And you can use your hands to work it in around the sides here. Get that nice and filled in. Try and get some in around the back here. I probably should have got a smaller scoop for this. You can work it in a little bit. Now I'm just going to run and get some more soil and I'll be back. Alright, so I got myself some more soil and also got myself a smaller scoop just to make things a bit easier. Especially trying to fill in between these branches around the back. I thought I got myself enough soil, but I just needed that tiny bit extra. It's always the case. Alright, so now we can start trying to get some of that pushed in down around the sides, make sure the tree's nice and sturdy. And now this is the point where I just grab those few little roots that I was going to let grow. Okay? I get the tips of them and put them out in the direction where I kind of want them to grow. And I know you can't see what I'm doing right now, but basically I'm just moving the roots into the position roughly where I want them, putting the tips, those root tips, out away from the tree, and then I'll just backfill the soil onto those root tips, and that'll hold that root into that position, and as it grows it'll thicken into that position rather than it, you know, being around the back of the tree or being in some random place. So you just basically push it to where you want it and then fill in the rest of your soil. That way when you're done and you're looking at your tree, you should see all your roots put out evenly around the tree. Well, actually, I've got the whiteboard here, so what I can do is just show you is, so if that's the base of your tree, you're looking over the top, okay? So if I show you, we had that one big root coming out the front of the tree, and one of them went back that way, and the other one went back that way, okay? That doesn't look real good. So what we end up doing was digging and finding where the end of those roots were, and then we ended up pinning them out, and then what we ended up with was more of a root that comes out like that. It looks much nicer for the bonsai design. And then obviously we had the one at the back that we pinned and we did the same thing with. Okay, we pinned it more into a shape like that. And then there was another root at the back that went straight down like that, which was fine. We didn't have to do anything with that. But then around here, we've got this gap here and this gap here. So we want to produce some roots later. So that was those littler roots that I showed you that we couldn't wire or pin because they're too small and we may do some damage to them. So all I'm doing there is, as I said, we've got our long root. So I may want to lay one out here, may want to lay one out there, one out there, one there, one there, and one there, okay? And then say this is the exposed part of the roots, okay, around the tree. All these little fine root hairs that are on the edge of those roots, okay? Now we're going to come in and we're going to fill the soil over the tops of those, okay? So those are the parts of the root that we want to put down in the soil. And then basically the exposed parts here, they will thicken and grow and create our Nebari design. I know that's a bit of a rough and ready way to show you, but once again, when you're doing root work on bonsai, it is super hard to show on camera what you are actually doing. So that's those ones at the front there. And hopefully once I've backfilled this in, I can bring the camera in one more time and just show you what those roots look like laid out. Where was that one? That's just there. So I want to put that into position and then put the end of that root on the soil. And then just backfill that back section in. All right. Now that's our tree, slip potted up, and we've done some Nebari work. So, as you can see, we're in our bigger pot now, and then you can actually see that a little bit from there, but we've got the roots here where we've exposed them. But I'll bring the camera in a little bit closer, we'll have a look at what we've done there, and then we'll bring the camera back out and conclude the lesson. Okay, so now that we've got all our soil back filled in around the edges here, you can see we've got our roots laid out here, Okay, we've got a bunch of little roots coming down the side here. Got this little guy here laid out, ready to go to become part of the Nebari. Got another root over here laid out, ready to become part of the Nebari. You can see up the back there where that pin is, okay, that's holding another root. And we've got, you know, a root over here, which we've laid out the side. And basically the tips of those roots are out here, okay? They're under this soil. So they're going to thrive, they're going to continue to grow, and that's going to result in these guys up here thickening, okay? So over the next year or two, these little guys here will end up like these, and these ones will get thicker again. So that's basically laying out our roots during the slip potting process, okay? So this is not something that you'll do all the time, but this is good work to do during the slip potting process, because as you can see, as this tree grows, the Nebari is going to grow with it, and by the time this tree is big enough and developed enough to do bonsai work to it, it's going to have that Nebari ready to go. You know, it's a shame when you see trees that have been developed really well, the branching, the thickness, the taper and all that kind of stuff, and then you look at the base and there's just nothing there. Nothing's been developed, or there is roots there, but they're running around the tree, and you know, they're just not looking real good. So I'm hoping you can see kind of up nice and close there what those roots look like laid out. Don't worry about that bark that's been scratched off there. The underside of them's still good. That's just something that happens when you're, you know, doing that action of scraping the soil away. But I'm going to bring the camera back out and we'll sign off for this lesson. Alright, so that's it for this demonstration of the slip potting. Now this is slip potting with Nebari root work. Watch the other demonstration as well. We've got the demonstration of just straight up slip potting without any of that work, so you can see how quick and simple that is. I did want to show both, okay? I wanted to show doing the Nebari work because it's so important, as I said, to develop that Nebari while the tree is growing. That way, when you've got the tree ready to be a bonsai, you've got that nice base. That base is just so important to bonsai design. So hopefully you can go out and start slip potting your trees, and while you're slip potting your trees, you can, you know, take a bit more notice of what's going on with those surface roots. You know now how to, you know, dig out that surface, have a look what's there, pin them, wire them, whatever you want to do, and get that work done. But I'll see you in the next lesson.